Welcome back, theater lovers, to another exciting episode of the BSB Podcast. Today we're unpacking the 79th Tony Awards at Radio City Music Hall, hosted by Pink. But before we dive into it, like, follow, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms at bsb.insider. And spoiler warning, if you haven't watched the 79th Annual Tony Awards and wish to avoid spoilers, please pause this video and come back once you have. RJ, it's wild to me how this season of shows felt like such a runaway season with the nominations when they were announced. But truly, the Tony Awards gave us a mixed bag. This was like an unexpected level of unexpectedness from, I feel like, from the recent seasons of the Tony Awards.
Yeah, the last couple of years, which I think is why I didn't watch them or at least didn't watch them live the last couple of years, was because it was so runaway. This year finally felt, even though the nominations had me worried, the outcomes restored a little bit of my faith in the Tonys.
You know, I do want to preface before we dive into the nominations, RJ, we don't see a lot of plays. Plays are not usually our go-to shows when we go to Broadway. We actually saw our first two plays this season when we went to New York in January. One of them was a winner from last year. So the only play that we had going into this was Liberation. Other than that, we didn't really know much about the play. So when Death of a Salesman took 9 nominations, Oedipus or Oedipus, depending on what world you're living in, took 7, and then you have 5 for August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, The Ballisters, Fallen Angels, Liberation. I didn't have much to really be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And truly the plays kind of went the way that they were kind of expecting, is what I'm saying here. Like, Death of a Salesman pretty much took the categories, with the exception of a few here and there that it did not. But it was the musical specifically that they were unexpected. Or do you feel like maybe the plays went kind of unexpected too?
I mean, yeah, obviously, Death of a Salesman, I don't know why I knew that was going to do well. I think maybe it was the chatter around it, so it wasn't shocking to me when it won everything that it won. But yes, not knowing, aside from seeing Liberation, not knowing much about anything else, it was all right. The outcome was, I mean, obviously not great for everyone who lost, but
shout out to the losers.
Yeah, I mean,
it just wasn't
I
unexpected.
Plays have less plays. I think the environment is less volatile, so there's less to like. Where musicals, you're comparing like choreography and costuming and vocals and orchestration. Like, there's so many pieces to a play or to a musical. Not saying that there isn't a lot to a play, but there are less things to have to gauge, and so I think when one thing in a play is successful, like, that kind of also means that there are at least a few more things that are doing well, which is why it doesn't shock me that this is the way that it went.
Yeah, and I mean, there was one big shocker I think that we'll talk about in a little bit, which is that Nathan Lane did not win for Best Actor, which was a little bit shocking when it pretty much swept every other category. But also, yeah, I think you're right. When you look at the musicals, I mean, 12 nominations for Lost Boy and Schmigadoon. Those seemed like the front runners to just wipe this competition. 11 for Ragtime, also a highly contended show. 9 for Cats the Jellicle Ball, and for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. 8 for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. And I am going to vindicate myself by saying that I'm going to say it right this show. After the editing a podcast where I said the name entirely wrong the entire time, and RJ just nodded there and let me say it wrong. He was
the best part is, in the back of my brain, I was like, he's going to listen back on this in the future and be like, what was I even saying? Which is why I didn't say anything in the moment.
So confidently, listeners, did I keep referring to it as carrying a cake across New York, because I feel like with a verb, it feels more actionable. And so that makes sense instead of carry a cake, but I digress. So 8 nominations for that one, 5 for Chess, and then less than 5 was Titanic. I thought we would be going into the Tony Awards with a Lost Boy sweep. I thought it was going to take every category. I didn't think Schmigadoon had a chance in hell because, again, it's such a particular show. Granted, we haven't seen it, but it was based off a television show on Apple Television. And I heard very mixed reviews. You either loved it or you hated it. There wasn't really like a lot of middle ground. And then, of course, Ragtime was the other contender. But I think from talking with you, I was almost convinced Lost Boys was going to take all 12, basically, or like most of the 12. It just be the big winner of the night. And truthfully, it did not shake out that way.
Yeah, I think, well, in general, the press for Lost Boys was like just everywhere. Like everything, like shout out to their PR team because they were doing the work. Like I have not seen much publicity for literally any other show except ironically Two Strangers. And that's just ads. Like I wasn't even seeing like a lot of press. It was just like those automated same ad over and over again. But Schmigadoon, like I literally until the nominations came out, I think I knew the least about Schmigadoon.
For sure.
And I've seen the least from it.
Yeah. Like, because it wasn't highly publicized in the way that the other one, like, I feel like everybody was running a really hard campaign and Schmigadoon was just riding on vibes. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. There wasn't really a pinpointing way of being like, oh, I'm seeing Schmigadoon everywhere. But they were also the one, like when they got 12 nominations, I'm not going to lie, RJ, I was gobsmacked. I was absolutely shocked. I was like, there's no way that this has more than Ragtime because it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I personally have not seen the TV show. I have not seen the Broadway show. I haven't even listened or like maybe I've seen like, I mean, I saw the Tonys. Like that's the only performances I've seen of Schmigadoon. So I can understand the appeal, and obviously we can get into this further, but from the standpoint of just where entertainment is right now in the world and what people are needing in order to escape or find comfort in. And so I think Schmigadoon does that, and it does it quietly.
For sure.
In this PR sense. Like it doesn't do it quietly. I understand it's very comical and very loud, the show itself, but from a PR standpoint, it kind of just like snuck in, and I think it surprised a few people.
I wonder if part of it has to do with the fact that Lorne Michaels was behind it. You know, the creator of SNL. He's found comedic talent left and right, and just having him be like his name attached to this was just they were riding. It's like having Harrison Ford in the film. You know what I mean? They were just riding on the fact that name recognition for voters was just gonna carry them through. And obviously it did because it's one of the highest winning shows. It won 4 awards along with Ragtime and Lost Boys. Like clearly it worked whatever they were doing and it succeeded. I mean, it's crazy to me that it won Best Musical. I'm gonna start off right there. I think that's the win that shocked me the most. And listeners, I am the biggest supporter of Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. And I thought it should have won. Having not seen Lost Boys or Schmigadoon, have seen Titanic off Broadway. Two Strangers to me has such a great emotional depth to it that I couldn't see Lost Boys or Schmigadoon having. And so that's why I think RJ was wild to me that it won Best Musical. But I think you're right. It speaks to what people need right in this moment. They needed escapism. They needed laughter. They needed something that was just easy to digest. And so Schmigadoon checked all those boxes where Two Strangers, yes, it was easy to digest. Yes, there was lots of funny parts, but you couldn't walk away with without the emotional weight that came with that show. And so reflecting on it after I had my little bit of a mental breakdown, it wasn't that bad, guys, but I definitely was sad. I understood why Two Strangers didn't win where I thought it deserved to win.
Fair. I mean, y'all, Brian was upset. Brian was in denial when this happened.
I sat there. I sat there in just shock for a little bit.
I mean, again, having not seen Lost Boys or Schmigadoon, I understand why Titanic did not win. Two Strangers, as much as I love that show, it is very, very hard for a 2-person musical to compete against a broad ensemble show.
Sure.
I think even though it is so much more difficult on those two people because they're running the entire show, I think, again, there's more pieces that are involved in bigger shows. And so that spectacle, or the idea of a spectacle, is grander, and I think more encompassing. Like when I think of, out of all of these, when and if they tour, which one's going to do well? You know, like, or which one's going to draw the audiences who aren't familiar with any of them? I do think, I mean, you have that title recognition, even if people didn't watch the show. It's somewhere in the back of their brain, right? They've maybe heard the word or the general idea. Lost Boys, I would say, is probably next, and then Two Strangers and Titanic. It's a toss up.
So what's interesting about that is I'm actually going to disagree with you just a little bit, but bear with me.
You're allowed to have an opinion.
What? On a podcast? I mean, everybody does that nowadays. Why am I so special? But The Lost Boys, I think, actually has the most recognition because that's such a cult classic film that I think people, like Back to the Future, we didn't think it was good, but people were flocking to Back to the Future ish. You know what I mean? Like it was pulling in that cult classic. To me, that, like, for a general audience, that speaks more to than what Schmigadoon's doing. I also think Titanic has ran such a great platform when it was off Broadway on social media. I think people would flock to that too. I actually think it would be Lost Boys, Titanic, Schmigadoon, then Two Strangers. Because my thing is that Schmigadoon is a casual person going to look at that and say, let's go see it. No, Broadway people are going to go see it because it won the Tony Award for Best Musical, but I don't think outside the general world it has any pull, and I could be completely wrong. Obviously it got canceled by Apple because it wasn't doing well after 2 seasons.
Like, that's fair. It is to a very specific person, right? Typically leaning towards the musical theater realm, or just musical oriented in general. Yeah, I mean, I much like Back to the Future, I have never watched The Lost Boys. I've never heard of it before now. So
everybody, I just have to let you know, I had once text RJ. I want to say it was about like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, "Oh man, we need to watch the movie." And his response was, "It was a film?" ? Like it was very much just like you didn't, like, he didn't realize that it's not just a film; it's a film series. There's 3 or 4 films to the series. And
I'm clueless, no idea.
But then also, I think it speaks to that again. What speaks to the general audience, it's going to depend, you know? So, like, maybe in that instance, it's not going to speak to people because maybe the younger generations don't know that because that was an 80s film, you know? And also, you didn't grow up watching horror like that. So, like, it's like a horror punky film. So,
yep.
But ultimately, I think that the bigger race for our household, our BSB household here, is the revival of the musical, which was Cats, obviously, Ragtime, and then the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And argumentably, RJ, the right show won, correct?
Yes. I mean, hard to say because we haven't seen the other two.
That's fair.
I would say, based on reaction from people who are close to me that have seen Cats, I think that's a really close call. I think I know that a lot of people were upset by that, and obviously a ton of commentary around race and just kind of systemic issues. But at the same time, I don't think that deters from Ragtime winning, because I do think that it was an incredible show and very much deserves the accolades that it's getting.
I do wonder, and we have not seen Cats: The Jellicle Ball. We did not also see the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They were not there in New York when we were there. We would have loved to see Cats. Is actually closing this month, June, you know, so that's really sad. But of the shows that we saw, which was only Ragtime, it was fantastic. This is where I'm wondering what happened. Cats: The Jellicle Ball is such a deviation from it's about queer joy, Black queer joy, people of color, it's such a deviation from the original source material that I'm wondering if that is what stopped it from winning for the voter. Like, if the people who voted it, they remember the cat. Like, again, I don't know what the polling pool of voters for Tony Awards is, you know what I mean? But like, people who loved Cats back in the 90s, this was not the same kind of Cats, you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, it's a different take on it, like a significantly different take. Then I'm wondering if a lot of people went for something that felt more comfortable in the fact that Ragtime pretty much is like the same show every time you get it. It's consistently Ragtime is Ragtime is Ragtime.
Yeah. Well, and there was a part of me for a minute that was like, why? Because of the changes to Cats, why was it even in the revival category instead of the regular musical category? But I guess like 95% of the orchestration was the same, which is why, even though the concept was different, that's why it stayed as a revival.
Much like Sunset Boulevard, then.
Yes. I was going to say, I remember us having this conversation around that too. I kind of wish there was like something in between, because, or some type of another rule for that, because it just feels so different. Like, and it makes the difference. Like, the delivery matters, and you're capturing a completely different demographic of people, like you kind of just said. Like, this is a show about Black queer joy.
Right.
It is celebrating ballroom culture. That is so far from what Cats was.
Correct.
So it just, I don't know. Like, if in the back of my head, like, it's still a winner.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Because of the really like reincarnation of the show. Like, after the movie came out however many years ago and bombed, I was like, why would anyone ever try to do anything with Cats ever again? And then this happened, and it has just imploded in a great way. So in that way, I think that it's a winner of just creativity, and yeah, I don't.
There almost needs to be a category for like. I think that people would take more chances. I think if there was a category for like reimagining versus revival, because like with revival, you get things like Sweeney Todd, which was like pretty much the same exact Sweeney Todd that you see, because you can't really change that. Ragtime, you can't really change it. The Rocky Horror was pretty much a carbon copy of the film. You know what I mean? Like, those are what I would say revivals, because you're basically telling the same visual and like narrative story. Where Cats is it took such a swing, like Sunset Boulevard, that like it should be applauded and awarded for the swing that it took. But maybe more shows would take more swings like that if there was a Tony Award that reflected this was Cats, but it also wasn't. Like, this isn't your grandma's Cats.
Right.
I think that's the beauty of this too.
Broadway League, Tony, I can't remember the official full name of the award board, but reimagining, create a new Tony for reimagining. You've heard it here first.
Absolutely. And before we kind of go into the some of the big winners that are tied to Ragtime, I do want to I think it's really important that we talk about Cats just for another second more. It won for Best Direction, but it won for Best Costuming, which makes absolute sense. I think it won for Best Choreography too. But specifically costuming, RJ, I think that we need to mention here, because it was the first trans Black woman, or trans woman period, who had won a Tony Award for costuming, which is I feel like it shows that like regardless of what's happening in the world, there's still reasons to celebrate. And absolutely, it deserves this award. But I know this is one that when it happened, I watched your face kind of light up. You kind of were very excited about that win, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Queen Jean, who was the costume designer for it, just the amount of joy, watching that amount of joy happen in real time. And I think shock too, because I can only imagine what was going through her mind, especially in today's time, in America specifically. Can't speak for the rest of the world, but so the authenticity and everything that I think she brought to the costumes, obviously, she won. And so I think that that speaks loudly. Also, they won for best direction.
Yes.
Which again just speaks to everyone just being true to what they wanted to accomplish. I think, and
Yeah.
from what I remember of their speeches, like it was just very. Um, we want to bring exposure and awareness to this culture, to this joy, and we want everyone to feel like they can find a home at Cats, the Jellicle Ball. I think is one of the directors said that.
Correct.
Um, which yeah, when we're in today's political climate, when rights are being taken away from humans for just being themselves, um, it is even more potent when you see someone who may look like you, who may be like you, or identify like you on the big screen. Um, just for all the kids sitting at home, right? Or even adults who are maybe unsure of their own identities or what they can accomplish. I think um, it's just a testament that your identity is not a barrier to your success. It can um, enhance your abilities to do the thing that you're passionate about and that you love, and you can do it well.
Absolutely. And I feel like that was kind of, when you talk about like the poignancy of all of this, I think that's where love that Ragtime did get some recognition, because people like Joshua Henry and the story he's telling with Cole House Walker Jr. in Ragtime absolutely deserves an award and recognition, because I mean him and Casey Levy, like they like are, I mean, the whole show's so great, but they are the emotional powerhouses of the show. It only to me there was like almost no other wins in my head that were going to take away best leading actor and actress in a musical. And so I like that there's like, we could celebrate the queer joy that came with Cats, the Jellicle Ball, but also the poignancy of like what happens when history is cruel or wrong, like we see in Ragtime.
Yeah, it was two very different perspective musicals, which I really enjoyed. And I mean, at the beginning, the opening of the Tonys, one of the first things that Pink mentioned was kind of about that in regards to, yes, sometimes you can use theater as an escape, but in more recent times, we're getting this art that is kind of reinvigorating us in a way to go out and see what's happening in our lifetimes, in our culture, on both ends of the spectrum, the not so good and the beautiful. Um, and so I think we did kind of get that with both Ragtime and Cats.
Absolutely. And I think I love that you said that about the opening number, because when Pink said that, it did really sit like heavy in a way that like it needed to sink in. I think it needs to sink in for more people when you're just like, there's a lot going on in the world and we can celebrate everything, but also like the messages of what we're talking about is important. Ragtime was and is important in this moment. And not to say that it wasn't important 20 years ago when they did it. I think they did it in 96. So that was 30 years ago. Wow, sorry. Not quite 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. But that was a long time ago. There was a lot of messages there that were probably still important, but what a world to live in now where that is even more important now, to see that show actualized. And so I think that is the beauty. And like I knew as soon as they announced Joshua Henry and Casey Levy as being nominated for those, there was no way that anybody else was just going to be able to compare to what was going on the stage with them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about Chess taking lead actor.
Sure.
Just because there'd been so much, again, when we talk about PR and the importance of really campaigning for the Tonys, it seemed like they were doing a lot of work to make that kind of happen. And obviously, he was notorious for
that note.
his eternally long note. But I am glad that it went to Joshua Henry and Casey, because it is both the physical, emotional, and to a certain degree spiritual um, exhaustion and the weight that they carry every time they have to go out onto that stage and portray this storyline that in some ways are running parallel to the culture that we're seeing today. Um, that's heavy. And I think you feel that as an actor or an actress, you feel that every time you go and perform. So,
you know, as much as I wanted Two Strangers to win, I knew I was okay with it because of exactly. And also shout out to both of them, Casey Levy and Joshua Henry, because the show just got extended for 2 more weeks. It has to close by the end of August. And they're two of the only people, including Brandon Urowitz, are staying through the extra 2 weeks, which is like, they know the importance, they know the weight, and they are willing to deliver. So because we can't talk about every show, RJ, I know there's a lot of awards and there's a lot of shows, and we can't talk about them all. Is there any wins that were surprising for you? Was there anything that you were just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that? And I will just say this. I think that John Lithgow winning for Giant over Nathan Lane, even though I hadn't seen either one of them, seemed shocking in the fact that I thought for sure Nathan Lane was walking away with that one. I think that was the one I was literally like, oh, wow. Besides Schmigadoon winning Best Musical, but we don't need to ever go back over that again.
Yeah, oddly, I do, again, I remember seeing some PR about Giant. I remember hearing good things about Giant. I know that there was a little bit of drama around Nathan Lane, and some previous awards,
Okay.
which I heard about after the Tonys happened. I mean, the events happened previous to the Tonys, but I heard about it after. And so I'm curious, like, I mean, how much does politics play a role? You know,
Oh, for sure.
not literal politics, but the politics of the show business. And I think, I mean, obviously, John, incredible actor, like, doesn't, but I think the whole list of lead actors in a play was stacked. Same thing with actresses. So
yeah,
I don't think that it was super shocking to me. I think I would have been happy whatever way it went.
The featured
But
roles, though, I will say that I think those shocked me too. The featured role for a musical, both Ali and Shoshana winning for Lost Boys, I was not expecting. Like, I was expecting them to sweep it, but I thought for sure Ben Levy Ross from Ragtime was taking the featured role.
Yeah, I am a little shocked that that didn't sweep in that way. Like, usually I feel like if you're gonna do lead actor, lead actress featured, like, I would have thought Ben had it in the bag. But again, I haven't seen Lost
Yeah,
Boys,
sure.
so.
But Nichelle Lewis and Hannah Cruz for Ragtime and Chess, respectively, were up against Shoshana. Like that, I'm just like that. For some reason, the actress in the featured role felt so tight in just like the people that they had. It was a little. I was a little like, again, not shocked, but also just like not, but also shocked. I don't know like how to describe it. I was expecting it to go Ragtime or Chess in that one. I thought that was maybe the one that Chess was going to run away with, besides maybe lead actor.
Well, and maybe, you know, obviously we're not in the room where it happens, but I am curious if that's a conversation. Like, sweeps are a conversation.
Sure.
Because it almost it easily seems like Ragtime could have swept, based on the two leads getting it.
Sure.
Part of me is like, did they sit in that room and be like, gotta have some versatility here. We want to acknowledge
Sure.
like more than one show. Obviously, we know that hasn't happened in previous years, right? Like the years that like Hamilton sweeps and there are other ones, right? So maybe this is the direction that Broadway and the Tonys specifically are going in regards to trying to spread the wealth, knowing that there's plenty of people nominated, right?
Sure.
but maybe making the winners a little bit more spread a little more thin.
Sure.
I mean, Shoshana, I love. I'm not shocked because her vocals are absolutely absurd. Um, so I mean, we know that I love Hannah, special place in my heart. Um, Rachel, does she even really sing? I don't know. I don't know. But everything that I've seen of her performances is like talk singing.
Correct. Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Because
so
it's
I like,
it's the professor. You know, he doesn't really sing.
yeah. So like, I can't really see that winning. Just even that role specifically, I can't see winning for a musical. And then obviously Michelle singing Daddy's Son just makes everybody weep. Um, and then Schmigadoon, haven't seen it, but since they won for Best Musical, it is a little bit shocking to me that they didn't win additional, like more, in a way.
I saw
But
this thing. I saw this thing that was talking about this one specifically, because somebody was bringing up that Leah Michelle should have been nominated. And first off, part of me agrees because I'm just addicted to the soundtrack of Chess right now. But someone pointed out, like, why didn't like Michelle Lewis win? And they said when you look at the role, she can sing her butt off, but the role itself isn't like there isn't much to the role of Sarah. You know what I mean? Like, and they're looking for both acting and singing in when they pick the winner of an actress. They want somebody who's talented in singing, but also performing their butt off. And so that's part of how how people are voting. And so you have to take that into account, that you think that like Nichelle Lewis is fantastic because of the note she hit, which again, I think she's fantastic in the entire role. But they said, but the role of Sarah itself isn't much more than a plot line for Coalhouse Walker Jr., and therefore there's not much acting getting to do in that part.
100% agree. Like, honestly, love her, but I was a little bit shocked that she was nominated because of the size of the role.
Right.
Like, really, aside from Daddy's Son and Wheels of a Dream, we don't see much of. Well, we see her standing at the top of the
Yes.
staircase, but that's like all we see until obviously, I won't give spoilers, but some things happen. But it's like one or two scenes comparatively to like Ben, who is in basically every other scene throughout the entire show. Um, but I mean, again, that's why it is featured role. Uh,
Right. Or like
but
Hannah Cruz, who shows up in Act 2, but she's in most of Act 2.
right, right. So it is an interesting. Those are the conversations that I'd love to just like be a fly on the wall. Like, I just want to know what the thought process is. Obviously, it probably changes every year as they have different um, voters and such, but um, it's an interesting dynamic to have to kind of finagle because they're all different roles, they're all such different shows, and the expectations are very different.
Oh, absolutely. And so when, as we're transitioning into just like the wrapping it up portion of this, RJ, we did have some biggest losers, which there's one that I want to talk about specifically, but I'm just going to go through them really quick. And I just want to preface this by saying, listeners, every show is a winner. The fact that I got nominated, and you should celebrate that, whether your show won or not. But Chess did not walk away with any awards. Rocky Horror did not walk away with any awards. But the one that was interesting to me, because you called it before it even went to Broadway, was Titanic. And you said, I loved that show off Broadway. I don't know how it's going to do a Broadway stage. Also, it's not going to win any awards if it gets nominated because it's not. Like, I don't want to say it's not of the same caliber, but it's not like a Ragtime. It's not like a Schmigadoon. Like, it is like a very, like, it's an intimate comedy house almost musical. Like, you called that so early before, like, they announced it for Broadway, and you said it's not winning, and you were right. And I don't know how you did that, but like, that's some magical shit right there.
I mean, it is its own. It gives me black box theater vibes, which
Oh yeah,
is not a bad thing. It's very it is very niche though, and so even their performance on the Tonys, I'm sorry, love you all, love the show, but it just felt like everyone was trying to make it bigger than it actually is, and so then it didn't translate super well, even to like TV, because you didn't. There's too much. You have to set up too much, and so I mean, even just like looking over, obviously the commentary, post Tonys, like people really didn't like it. I mean, like actively did not like that
Yes.
performance. And so, and I can't say, first of all, I do not think it was a strong performance. I'm just going to say it. I don't think
Oh
it
yeah.
was. Um, Vocally, there were some issues. I'm sure nerves were playing a role. But it's just more difficult to, it's so much easier to like dampen a show rather than to like blow it up to fill the space. And I feel like coming into Broadway, I mean, we've heard it's doing quite well. I don't know what theater it's at, but I think that makes a difference too.
Titanic.
But I'm
I don't
very
know. That's a good
curious
question.
if it tours. Like again, I'm just thinking like the person in, seat 3000 on the last balcony, last row. How impressed are you going to be by Titanic? I'm not, because
You
we
want to
were
know?
what? Like we were basically on the stage. I mean, it was so
Correct.
small and so tight, and you could see every like the facial expressions. It's like, oh Mary. It's so important to be able to see every single thing that's happening, that if you don't, it's not spectacle enough. Nothing, the set doesn't
Yes.
change. No, there's literally nothing coming on and off that set except for the people. And that just doesn't translate well to houses that fit thousands, basically.
I looked it up. RJ, we saw a show there last year. And when I tell you the show, you're going to be like, that theater is not big. It's too big. It's even bigger than you think it is. We saw Sunset Boulevard at the St. James Theater last year, and that's where Titanic is right now. And maybe it's because the Queen of Versailles, it was also there. It obviously got canceled quite early, but and so they just need something to fill it. But if you could imagine where we sat for Sunset Boulevard, we weren't even at the top. I wouldn't be able to see half the show.
Yeah, I was completely anticipating it being like at the Daryl Ross. Like
Yes,
something that's like relatively intimate, or even like where was it?
the
Maybe Happy
Hudson.
Ending.
Oh yes,
But I mean, good on them. I'm sure they've obviously made some changes, but circling back to the Tonys, it just, yeah, it doesn't shock me. Um, and it makes me so sad because that cast is stacked. I think they are relying heavily on that, or did rely
oh
heavily
yeah,
on that. And I will 100% go see it for the cast.
oh yeah, for
Especially
sure.
since I already know what I'm getting into, but also politics. The show is very queer. It's outwardly gay. It's
Oh yeah,
making the jokes. And it rides the line. I mean, obviously it's satire, but it rides the line of like, if you're a Celine Dion fan, like a real Celine Dion fan, and you're not into comedy, you're gonna absolutely hate it because it
correct.
is poking fun at her, in a loving way. So, um, yeah, that's long story
Yeah,
long. That's my thoughts.
it is interesting when you think of it that way, because I think like you're talking about gay, like the queerness of it. When Celine Dion makes a joke at the Tonys about Pink being a lesbian, like that's the entire show. And like that, if that's the energy that you didn't like that joke, you're not gonna like this show because it is outwardly gay all over. I mean, when we saw it, Andrew Bolger was in it. Andrew Keenan Bolger, and it was, I mean, he's a lovely man. He's great. He's wonderful, but he brought a lot of gay to Victor, Garber, and like so you have those roles. Right now, it's being played by Frankie Grande, and you have, oh my god, the guy from The Big Bang Theory. Like you have so much gayness in this show that you have to be able to embrace it, and you should also be able to see it. I could not imagine seeing this in the theater it's in. A theater like O'Mary, though, where you're like on top of the cast, that's a great idea. But also when you said you thought maybe it should be somewhere like the Daryl Roth Theater, when that's the off-Broadway theater it was at, is That's pretty on the nose there, RJ. But I do have to say, though, when you talk about the performances of the Tonys, I think a lot of them did fall flat for me in the same way that Titanic did. Not that they were bad, but I was just like that's the song you chose to perform for us, or like that's how you're trying to campaign one last time. Like, not that you really campaign, but you're trying to show off like why you should be best musical. Like Schmigadoon, I wasn't enthralled with Schmigadoon's performance. I can only semi remember the Lost Boys performance. I remember Cats. I remember Two Strangers, but again, I have that emotional connection to it. Like, I don't really, half of the shows I can't tell you, be like, yeah, that was something that really stood out in my head. Even I've the Rocky Horror, I forgot that it performed until I just looked at the list. Well, you know what I mean? Because like, I think that kind of shows you where I am, at least with the shows that are currently on Broadway. And maybe I feel different once I've seen some of them.
Yeah, I mean, Lost Boys, I can like see it in my head what it was, but like there was also almost too much going on that I was
like
what am I supposed to be getting out of this?
Yeah.
And then you have the opposite effect for some of them, right? Like you just said, like, again, Rocky Horror, very similar, but like everyone knows that song. So like it was basically a sing along. Ragtime doing their overture
makes sense.
Prologue makes sense. It's literally exactly like they just copied and pasted their music and choreo.
Correct.
And so I don't know. And yeah, Schmigadoon, I mean, a lot of dancing, right? Which obviously that show has it. And the comedy piece, Two Strangers. I mean, again, kudos to like them for, it's so hard for two people to fill that stage. And
she did a costume change midway.
Yeah. So
bravo to her.
I mean, was I like awestruck by literally any single performance? No.
Not like when we saw The Outsiders perform, a few years ago. When we saw that and we were like, oh, right. Shoot, we have to go to Broadway to see that show.
Well, and that's like, even for the ones that won for scenic design and like choreo, I mean, Cats was exactly what I would expect, I guess, with some weird choices in there.
Sure.
But, and then the, like, Rachel singing from chorus line, that kind of felt empty to me. I didn't love it. I mean, I love her, but like I would have loved if we could have incorporated like some type of cast.
Yes.
Or like more people, not just her. Like, what does she have to do with a chorus line? I don't know.
Correct. I agree. Absolutely. It made no sense in that way. And they didn't do anything with it. Like, you could have brought out people who were still living from the original chorus line. Granted, they're in their like 80s, but like you could have done something to celebrate it in a bigger way. If it was so important to showcase at the Tonys, why didn't we do more to showcase it?
Right. And I'm sure there's I know earlier this year, or was it last year, when they did like a anniversary type performance, I think it was down in Times Square or around there. Yep. Like, why couldn't we have done, just do the song one? It's a chorus line, right? I mean, so meh. But honestly, the most impressive number, which it usually is, it was the opening number.
Pink killed it.
Yeah, it was very good. I was a little bit worried, not because, I mean, Pink's an insane, wonderful performer, but I was not sure how they were going to mesh like a pop star with Broadway, and if they were going to lean towards her strengths or towards musical theater. So I'm glad, and obviously it makes total sense. They did Marmalade.
For sure. It was great.
Complete sense.
They didn't need Megan Thee Stallion after the debacle that was Moulin Rouge earlier this year, but I appreciate it. And I like that they also showcase other people like Leah Michelle, who wasn't up for an award, but it was truly about celebrating the art that's on theater and not just about celebrating the people who are up for the awards. So I thought that was kind of cool too. It felt a little bit like, and granted, this is probably not Pink's choice, but it felt like Pink was like, everybody should be celebrating this moment. We've done so much. We've come so far. We've also had such a tough year, and theaters still going. So let's celebrate all of those pieces. And that was my favorite part of the entire show too. That was amazing.
Agreed. I think celebrating, bringing all of those casts out, bringing folks who weren't, like you said, weren't nominated or weren't even performing. It just speaks to the importance of every single person who plays an important role, whether they're nominated or not. It's what the Tonys should be, celebrating theater overall, and not just like a select small few.
And so with that, though, the 2025-2026 Broadway season has come to a close. But RJ, what is coming up next in the world of theater? What do we have to look forward to?
Well, depending on when this comes out.
It's coming out next week.
We are coming up on the Jimmy Awards on June 22nd, which is very exciting. Those will be streaming live. I'm not sure I think it's online. I'm not sure if it's actually on a TV channel, but it's for sure live streaming. So make sure to check that out. Obviously, with shows kind of ending with this kind of Tony cycle, we have a bunch of new ones coming up. Looking into August, September, October. Paranormal Activity.
Hell yeah.
Not my thing, but
I'll go see without you. It's fine.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity, Other Desert Cities, Wanted, Fantastics, Much Ado About Nothing, Evita. Like, there's so many shows that
absolutely
are
incredible
also going to be pretty star-studded too. So it's gonna be a season.
I mean, that's going to be a great season. And then here in Michigan, we have some great shows coming up. So don't miss The Notebook, maybe Happy Ending, Dirty Dancing the Musical, Boop. Those are all in the first part of the year. But yeah, there's so much to be excited for. So stay tuned for future episodes of the BSB Podcast, where we're going to keep you up to date with all the excitement here in Michigan and on Broadway. Thank you so much for being here. Until next curtain call.